Okay, good morning everyone. Allow me to introduce myself. My name is Sept from Bunda Mulia University. In this opportunity, I would like to present my simple research about interpersonal markers in opinion articles. So as you can see in the slide, the title of my presentation is an analysis of interpersonal markers in opinion articles in the Jakarta Post and Washington Examiner. So actually the objective of this study is to find out about the differences and similarities between the use of interpersonal meta-discourse markers by Indonesian and American writers in opinion articles. Okay, first of all, let's take a look at the definition of meta-discourse. What is actually meta-discourse? So according to Hyland 2000, as cited in Hyland and Sept 2004, meta-discourse is the linguistic resources used to organize a discourse or the writer's stance towards either its content or the reader. While according to Scriven 1980, as cited in Hyland and Sept 2004, meta-discourse is more generally seen as the author's linguistic and rhetorical manifestation in the text in order to bracket the discourse organization and the expressive implications of what is being said. So based on the above definition, we can say that basically meta-discourse is a linguistic tool that writers use to give and organize their ideas and to show their position or stance about content or the readers. So basically it is something that they use in the article to show about their position in the opinion article. And then Hyland divides meta-discourse into two kinds of meta-discourse, into two categories, textual and interpersonal. Textual is related with organizing ideas and creating coherence, while interpersonal, how the writers express their ideas and how they want their reader to understand them. Since this research focuses on opinion articles, so we are going to look at interpersonal markers only. Okay, here we can see that there is a classification of meta-discourse by Davos Mile 2008. You can see that Davos divided meta-discourse, interpersonal meta-discourse, into 5 main categories. Hedges, certainty markers, attributors, attitude markers, and commentaries. While these are the subcategories, so the subcategory of hedges is epistemic verb, probability adverb, epistemic expression, and then attitude markers. The subcategory are deontic verb, attitudinal adverb, attitudinal adjective, and cognitive verb. While commentaries, the subcategories are rhetorical question, direct address to reader, inclusive expression, personalizations, and asides. And these are the examples, the word examples. So for the examples of epistemic verb are may, might, must. While the examples of probability adverb are probably, perhaps, maybe. And then examples of deontic verb, for example, like have to, must, need to. And then direct address to reader, for example, the pronoun you, and then the reader, and then inclusive, for example, we all, us. So these are the examples. Next, the methodology. The articles that are used in this research are taken from online versions of two newspapers, Jakarta Post and Washington Examiner, in the month of December 2019. And then the size of corpus is around 8,500 words for each newspaper. And then the study is limited to analyzing the interpersonal meta-discourse markers found in these articles. And then the writer used Encong software version 356 by Anthony to analyze data which is grouped based on the classification proposed by Davos. And then the frequency of each type of marker is analyzed and then compared between both online newspapers to see if there are any similarities or differences in the way American and Indonesian writers use the interpersonal meta-discourse markers in their opinion articles. And then for the analysis, so this is the results. You can see that this is the interpersonal meta-discourse markers opinion article. So this is the results of meta-discourse markers from the two newspapers. We can see that in the first column is from Jakarta Post, and then in the second column from Washington Examiner. In the Jakarta Post, the Indonesian writers use hedges for 12 markers, while the American writers in Washington Examiner use 20 markers for hedges. And these are the verbs that are used in Jakarta Post, may, might, maybe, likely, and these are also the verbs used in Washington, may, probably, perhaps, likely. So there are several verbs that are similar. And then for certainty markers, it is used three times in Jakarta Post, while in Washington Examiner there are 6, not too different. And then the attributors markers in Jakarta Post are 2, while in Washington Examiner also 2 markers. So from the results we can see that there are similar markers, meta-discourse markers, that are used in both Jakarta Post and Washington Examiner. So both of them use hedges, certainty markers, and attributors. And then for the differences, we can see that in Jakarta Post, here the attitude markers are only used 14 times, while in Washington Examiner it is used 25 times. So the American writers use more attitude markers in their opinion articles. And then for commentaries, the Indonesian writers only use 44 markers in Jakarta Post, while in Washington Examiners, the American writers use 111 commentaries markers. So yeah, I think the American writers use more commentaries markers in their opinion articles. So we can see that in these two markers, Jakarta Post and Washington Examiners are different here. You can see that the amount they have quite, what is it? And the amount and the frequency are very different. Okay, next. For the analysis, next. So from the previous table, we can see that there are some similarities and differences in the use of interpersonal method scores markers used by Indonesian and American writers. The similarities, the first one is they are similar in the use of hedges. So there are 12 markers in Jakarta Post and 20 in Washington Examiner. Like this one, 12 in Jakarta Post and 20 in Washington Examiner. There is slight difference in the subcategory. For example, in probability adverb, there are more in Washington than in Jakarta Post, but the differences is not significant. So there is a slight difference in the subcategory for this one. And then the second similarities are in the use of certainty markers. There are 3 markers in Jakarta Post, while there are 6 in Washington Examiner. The words used are the same, clearly and certainly. This one. So they are using the same word, clearly, certainly, clearly, certainly. And then the third similarities, they are similar in the use of attributors. There are 2 markers in both newspapers, and the words used are also the same, claim. So in the attributors, there are 2 markers in Jakarta Post and also 2 markers in Washington Examiner. And they have the same word, claim and also claim. Next, the differences. The first difference is they are different in the use of attitude markers. So there are 14 markers in Jakarta Post, while there are 25 in Washington Examiner. The subcategory is also different. Indonesian writers use attitudinal adverb, while American use attitudinal adjective. Let's see. Yeah, in Jakarta Post, the Indonesian writer use attitudinal adverb, while in Washington Examiner, the writers use attitudinal adjective. Americans also use more words. They're using have to, must, need, surprising, feel, think, believe than Indonesian writers. So the Indonesian writers only use these 4 words: must, need, unfortunately, believe. And then the second difference is in the use of commentaries. There are 44 markers in Jakarta Post, while in Washington Examiners there are 111 markers. The difference is quite significant. Also, the Indonesian writers only use 2 subcategories, while Americans use 4 subcategories. Let's see. the Indonesian writers in Jakarta Post only use two subcategories: inclusive expression and personalizations, while in Washington Examiner, the writers use four subcategories: rhetorical question, direct address to reader, inclusive expressions, and personalizations. In addition, American writers use the pronoun you and I more often than Indonesian writers. It indicates that American writers are more direct in addressing their readers, and they're also more active in showing their opinions about something. Meanwhile, the Indonesian writers in Jakarta Post do not use any pronouns you and using less pronoun I. It indicates that Indonesian writers don't address their readers directly, and they also do not express their opinions strongly about something. So let's have a look in the use of in Jakarta Post, the writers do not use any pronoun you here, while in Washington Examiner, the writers use you, the pronoun you, for 20 times, and then in Jakarta Post, the use of pronoun I is only 13 times, while in Washington Examiner, the use of pronoun I are 36 times, So the difference in the use of these pronouns, you and I, are most likely influenced by their cultures. As we know that Americans' cultures is more direct. American people are more direct, and then they are also more active in expressing their opinions. They are more direct in expressing their opinions about something. While Indonesian culture is more humble. We as Indonesian people are more humble and do not want to stand out. And then for the conclusion, the first conclusion is both Indonesian and American writers use similar interpersonal meta-discourse markers in hedges, certainty makers, and attributors. And then the writers are different in the use of attitude markers and commentaries. And these differences in the use of these markers are most likely influenced by their own culture. So I think that's all for my presentation. Thank you very much.